Welcome, everybody, to Connections Count. This is where we have conversations about work, life, and everything in between. Your host is Melody Beach, if you don't know. And we are actually very blessed today to be talking to one of my very dear friends and also a fellow facilitator for programs that we both are very passionate about. And we'll just jump right in. So, Ed Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining. I am so happy that you're here. You might remember I used to have a radio show, so we stopped that a while back, and we wanted to start doing the podcast again, having a way to connect wonderful people like yourself and the services that you offer to the community, and also talking about a number of passions that we have with folks out there that follow all of us. So it's a great platform for us to be able to share.
Yes, I love these things. Thank you.
It's great. I'm glad you do. So I wanted to really talk about right now. We're working very diligently with the state, and we are always working on a program called the 50 Plus, and we can talk about the formal name and all this other stuff. But regardless, the premise is we have different topics and workshops that we offer to people in the 50 plus demographics, helping them re-enter the employment arena because it's tough. Right? It's a lot of different maneuvering and navigating than you had to do years and years and years ago. And not only that, it changes and evolves every month, it feels like, or every year. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, it has to in order to respond to the changing needs of our target audience, the 50 plus group. We also want to differentiate ourselves from, there are so many programs available.
You're right.
Throughout the communities here in Massachusetts.
You're right. So we do have to evolve, and we have to share new and exciting topics to keep people engaged and wanting to be there. So very, very, very important. In your own personal life, let's say separate from the program, and we can talk about that later, what do you do? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, my journey is actually one that mirrors a lot of people who made career mistakes in their youth when they didn't really, think about what do I want to do for the rest of my life. Most of us are looking into just getting a job. True. Or surviving, or we have been influenced by relatives, friends, people whose jobs we saw.
That's a really good point. You don't really think about that too often, but you're right. We do sometimes emulate family members or careers of family members. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, which is a job, or dad these days, that can be because your mother or grandmother fulfill that type of role, right? So talk more about that.
Yeah. So I'll say not even consciously aware, maybe being influenced by, my mother was working for a bank.
Okay.
One of the old ones no longer
when we
exists.
had tellers and people?
And during an open house,
okay.
We get to see the executive offices.
Oh.
And, I loved what I saw.
Yeah.
And in addition, one of my uncles worked for a local supermarket, which is still around, but I don't want to give the name.
Okay, makes sense.
And he got to meet celebrities.
Oh.
Pictures in his house had Jerry Lewis, Dionne Warwick, and others.
Oh, that's exciting as a child, right?
He had a freezer at his house filled with ice cream and treats. We could have as much as we wanted.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Right?
So I thought I wanted to go into business.
Okay.
And I went to Boston University, great school of business, back then called the School of Management, today the Questrom School, and got a wonderful education, especially in writing.
Oh, okay.
I was exempted from freshman composition, worked my way up from the next class to advanced composition.
Okay.
And what I gradually learned slowly was that business wasn't, for me, and I said it was very gradually, this took years, but we all have to be in business. But I came to realize through assessment tests, which you and I both offer, how I'm more of a verbal person.
Okay. We were just talking about that in an earlier podcast. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I could never choose a major. Did I want marketing? Did I want sales? Did I want, accounting? And I did very well in just about all my courses, except statistics, by the way. And I happened to be working at the registrar's office upon my graduation. This is a great example, by the way, for referrals or how most jobs don't exist.
Okay.
They hired me and said, "You've been here for 3 years working part-time. You've done a fine job. Do you want to work for us full-time?"
Great example. Right. Okay. The hidden job because,
Yes.
again, all right, go ahead.
You can't start till next month. We have to advertise the job. And this is something that goes on today. And I
Right,
didn't
right.
realize this at that time, how
Right.
extraordinary this is or how common. So I was curious to myself, well, what do I want to do next? And I was thinking of law school, but the university said to me, well, if you take classes at night, you can, we will pay for you.
Well,
That was awesome. You get what's called tuition remission. I got my courses, for free.
wow.
But they wouldn't pay for law school.
Okay.
So I went back to the business school again,
Yeah.
but this time I majored in IT.
Oh, that was smart.
So the next part of my journey, I think, is also a lesson to other people. Studying for something is not the same as doing it.
You're right. You're right. That hands-on is very important. And I personally think a combination of both is really needed because, again, you can read the books, you can study the books, you can do the education, but you got to put it into practice.
Exactly. So I wound up moving to Ohio. I had a job as a systems analyst, now having had my degree in IT. And I basically discovered that I didn't really like what I was doing. I loved studying computers. I
Yep.
loved, learning new things. I'm a lifelong learner and student. But it was hard to find out the aspects of the technology that I liked. See, to a lot of people, and I'm going to jump forward. I was once at Dell Computer. I'm in the cafeteria with some of the people, and we're finally talking not about technology, but about, hey, what do you do?
Oh, yep.
Personally, and
Yeah.
finding out. And somebody comes running up with this, circuit board. Hey, Melody, look, it's the new Dell 3 Perk card. It's got L2 level cache with 1.5 meg, and
They stopped communicating about personal stuff.
these young people, working
Yeah.
for Dell at the time, where I happened to be working on a contract for another company in IT, they are just so in love with this. Whereas for me, computers are appliances.
Yep.
They help us with our other aspects
something,
of our life
right.
and jobs, with something.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wound up coming back to Massachusetts because I happened to meet a woman at a bar called the Bull and Finch Tavern, today known as Cheers.
Oh, no way. How funny is that?
And this was the push that I needed, the action to take to come back to Massachusetts and find, something else
Yep.
that,
Next phase of your life.
yeah. And I couldn't do a big pivot.
Yep.
Yeah, I sort of call it like, here's from the statistics classes that I didn't do great in, parabolas. These long lines that curve. And this, what sort of enabled me to do this, starting to change my career direction, was one of the engineers at the company in Ohio came into the room, and he said, "We engineers do not want to teach."
But you like to do that.
And I jumped at the chance to teach
Yep,
the
perfect.
customers. And that began my approximately 30-year career as a corporate trainer.
There you go.
And I loved presenting. I loved writing, which I was very, very good at. And I'm still trying to figure out, well, what do I really want to do? Because even as a trainer, but still in high tech, there's something missing for me. And one day, my career coach said to me, there's a group I'd like to introduce you to. This is a very helpful group that I'll mention still exists now, called the Institute for Career Transitions,
Yes. Great place.
founded by Gail Liebhaber and Ofer Sharon and others. And basically, they took me on and they started giving me really a curriculum in how to be a career coach.
Okay.
And I volunteered. I did all the grunt work.
Yep.
I did anything they needed. And it took about 5 years. And then one day at an event, they're telling me, hey, put the place cards on the tables, put the pens on the tables, doing what I've done before, helping people out a bit. And I said, hey, I happen to notice you've got one table still open. And they said to me, that's yours.
Wow.
You are going to facilitate that table.
That's excellent. How exciting.
Yeah.
Well, you'd been mentored by them for numerous years,
Yes.
and although you were doing all kinds of maybe grunt work, but you were learning the whole time you were doing
Yes.
that work. You were absorbing like a sponge. So they knew you were ready. And so speaking about career coaches, all right, you had one. You mentioned that before you went to you started talking about the Institute, right? Would you recommend folks have a career coach as their, or a mentor? I think it's important, but I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Definitely. I do think it's important. And I also think it's important that people do the self-examination first to recognize where are they, where do they want to go, or in training we used to say, what's the gap?
Okay, yep.
And they need the right type coach. So
That's true.
as an example, I'm a jobs coach. I am a resume writer. I've progressed to the point I'm a judge for the Professional Association of Resume Writers.
Hear that, guys? Right? Not only a certified resume writer, but a judge. Wow. Yeah.
And I do some life coaching, but I recognize in myself, because of my own personality, for those of you who follow Myers-Briggs, I'm an ISTJ, which is sort of unusual for a coach. But for the aspects of the coaching I excel in, which is the practical steps to help you get your next job, and with the writing, the coaching for it, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to stop doing. But when it comes to life coaches, and there are some coaches who excel at that, I recognize my limitations. If someone comes to me and they're looking for life coaching, I'll say, I can try to help you with that, of course, but I want you to recognize it's not my sweet spot. I would refer them first to someone else for, we'll say, life coaching, where you don't know what to do, generally not just with your career, but your life.
Right.
Values, and also accountability.
Okay. I mean, there are so many different levels of coaching and things like that. And just I think it's, again, very important to have somebody that can guide you, mentor you, help you. But I agree. I think the assessment piece is critical. You need to know where you're going. Now, I do agree that you can pivot and change throughout your life, but there is a trajectory that you typically are headed toward, with some, deviations and variations, right?
Yeah, you've probably seen the memes on Facebook and other places that show a straight line, where I am, where I want to go. And they go, that's your theory. But the reality is this doodle that goes around in circles.
It's right. It's so true. So keep going. So you now have your own practice, right? You mentioned you are a jobs coach, so you have a private practice, and you have this wonderful, wonderful newsletter that I think has the most creative name out there. Tell our listeners and our viewers what that name is.
So my newsletter, and more precisely the blog within
There you go.
a larger newsletter, is called The Stop Sign.
The stop sign. Now, who would have thought, right? But isn't that intriguing? Doesn't that want to suck you in? It does, right? You want to know more about what's on that stop, right? What are you supposed to stop, right? So expand on that a little bit.
So at one point when I was doing writing with the Institute for Career Transitions, they were looking for, we need a hook.
Yep, okay.
And what I came up with is, well, I had mentioned a few minutes ago how this part of the country is blessed with so many state and civic town agencies
Well, that's true.
to help people.
We are, yes.
And this can confuse people because, here's a real example. Somebody came to my free practice interviewing sessions that I do at the Framingham Library.
Okay.
And they showed me 2 pieces of paper. And they said, Ed, look at these 2 resumes. Which one do you recommend, A or B? And which one do you like better? And I said, well, I think I like B. Well, the Career Center, where you work, told me, it should be A. It shouldn't be B.
Right, okay.
And what this leads, the problem is because of the wealth of free resources,
Yep.
people are always going around looking for the correct answer.
Right.
Or the one answer. And there's an old saying, if you ask 100 resume writers, what you should do, you'll get 98 different answers.
Exactly, right? Because there is no perfect or one idea or way to do it. We all have an opinion, and yes, there's guidelines in there or things that you should and shouldn't do, all right? But if you choose to do them or not is a different discussion that we can have offline from here, I bet, with our viewers, right? With some of the folks that we've coached and mentored. That aside, talk more about that.
So what I did was flip it. I feel very confident that if we asked 100 resume writers what people should not do on their resume, then you would probably achieve near unanimity.
That would make sense, because we might always say, or very similar say, to stop the same things, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I found this principle applies to networking.
Okay.
It applies to cover letters and so many aspects of the job and career search. So
Okay.
that's why
I
I
love
say
it.
the stop sign.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody comes and I'm coaching them, helping with the practical aspects, I will, of course, tell them, here's what you need to do.
Right.
But I really emphasize at times, again, I'm flipping the model and saying, okay, this is what you first need to stop doing. And I have to tell you, at times it can be frustrating because on LinkedIn, Facebook and other places, there are still people giving advice from 10 years ago. And that advice is wrong
Right.
after
right.
10 years.
They're not evolving. They're not changing with the times and what employers are looking for, what the industry is saying that they're looking for. I mean, a prime example, it might be minor, but something that a resume writer definitely would pick up on is spacing. Right? How many spaces should you have ever a period? All right. I know it
Yes.
sounds minor, but it's evolved. It's changed. It wasn't the way it was before.
Exactly.
Right? So let's talk about common mistakes, right? So I see we've come prepared, and I love this, right? I really do. Ed, you're so organized. It's a beautiful thing working with Ed, let me tell you. But let's talk about some of the common mistakes that are out there. Okay.
So I've come with 5 common mistakes. Again, I don't know how much time is left. We'll see if we get through
time.
them.
Yep.
And so mistake number 1. So this is job application oriented.
All right.
Okay. How are most jobs landed?
Through networking.
How do most people look for jobs?
Online.
Online. And this leads to mistake number 1.
That's true.
People have actually said to me, I applied to 10 jobs yesterday. I applied to 20 today. At this rate, I'll have a job within 2 weeks.
Right.
So the mistake is applying to X number or more jobs every day and thinking that the more jobs you apply to, the better your chances are of landing a job.
Right. Okay. It makes sense. It really does. We do talk about networking all the time. It's about who you know, right? In addition, it isn't necessarily that person, but it's who that person knows, and on and on and on, right? The greater net you can cast with people that you know and know maybe about you, maybe what you might be looking for, your interests. It isn't that you're out there begging for a job. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying you're letting people know about you and your interests, and hey, I might be looking for a role in this industry. And again, keeping yourself in mind and just making yourself different from everybody else will keep you in the back of people's minds, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about mistake 2.
So number 2 is you created and rehearse often a 30-second to 1-minute elevator speech to use on everyone you meet. It sounds
Well,
counterintuitive. Everybody's telling you out there, from, I'll say, state agencies to private counselors, everyone is saying you must practice and rehearse your elevator speech.
right.
And I know a business, a corporate branding specialist who as early as 2012, 2013 was telling people the elevator speech is the most evil invention of mankind in history. I think that's a little over the top. But the reality is, well, why do people go to networking events?
Well, we go to networking events to, find leads and get referrals, right, on jobs that might be out there, right? Meet people.
Exactly. And everyone wants to talk to someone else about what they want.
Right.
So the truth is that practically no one wants to listen to us sell ourselves for 30 seconds to a minute, especially in this era when people allegedly have the 9-second attention span of a goldfish.
That's so true. Right.
If you want to have an elevator speech, fine. Where do you use it? At the interview.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself.
Exactly. All right. Makes sense. What about if you submit the same resume for every single job that you have? So I've heard this over and over, and I would really like to get your opinion on this. Is that what people should be doing?
Definitely not. And for two reasons. The first one is the filtering software used by almost every company these days.
Yep.
They're looking for the words that relate to the job, which we call keywords.
Yep.
If you lack those keywords, then you're going to score low on the software.
Right.
The second reason, though, is that people who interview and read resumes, whether they're a coach or whether there's somebody at a company, if you do it often enough, you can tell that it's a generic resume or something that's even been a copy-paste. So, for example, I mentioned I'm a judge for the PARW, Professional Association of Resume Writers. And I recently failed a person because I wrote in their feedback, you used stock phrases, generic self-descriptors. You didn't give context with any accomplishments. And so some people will think, well, I'm in this profession.
Right.
I have the key words. But if it comes across that it's the generic thing that shows up all the time.
Right.
Yeah. And some people apply to companies for multiple positions. The HR department, they're going to see
the same resume.
Look at the same resume.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think people need to mix it up, and what I mean by mix it up is create it for the role that they're actually applying for, right? And put that little spin on it about them. Why are you fit for this job? Why do you want this job, right? Why do you think you're the best one for this job? Sell me, right? Tell me why I should put my faith and money in you, right? I fully agree with you, Ed. I totally agree. If you compose and use job applications, a generic 3-paragraph letter that rehashes your resume and hopes for a response, or even worse, never submit a cover letter at all. So walk me through mistake number 4, the cover letter.
Cover letters are controversial.
They are.
I have gone to recruiter panels where recruiters have said, that's your chance to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Yeah.
This is a chance to let us see how you write well. This is a chance, as you just said, show your passion, show your why.
Yes.
Now, you're still going to run into people, recruiters included, people on LinkedIn, who say cover letters are useless. But if you have an extended conversation with them, which I have had on many occasions,
Okay.
usually the reason they say they are useless is because they've seen poorly written cover letters.
Well, I got a question for you. All right. So a great, well-written, cover letter that is, first of all, when I'm reading things, if something like stood out to me like that, like it was a wow cover letter, that would resonate with me. Because most of the time I don't get them. Okay, first of all. And second of all, to your point, they're blah. They're boring. They don't stand out with the rest of the group, okay? So that would be one thing that I'd be looking for, a wow cover
Yes.
letter. The second thing is what if the company isn't asking for one? Do you think that they should still do one to differentiate themselves?
I still do,
Okay.
even though I've heard people say, don't include one if they don't ask for one.
Gotcha.
And the reason I believe one should is a manager once said to me, Ed, I don't necessarily read the cover letters, but I look at the applications first that have the cover letters.
Ah. So there's a method to his madness, right? So similar to myself, which I just said, if I was reading all the cover letters and one was just a wow, like standouter in the crowd, I would definitely put that aside. You know what I mean? Because they took the effort and time to do it.
Yes.
And I think that says a lot to that person's character. I really do. Okay, great. I can't believe it, but we're on mistake number 5.
Yes.
So want to cover that with us?
Yeah. Now, interviewing is stressful.
Yeah, it can be,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't done it in quite some time.
The hope is it will be conversational, but too many of them are, inquisitions, interrogations.
Yeah.
I had some people earlier in the week on site at the library who were telling me about some of their experiences. I've met people who have said they, after the interview, said, I don't think I really want to work here, but I'm desperate.
Okay.
That's how much interviewing is just terrible. And I think it's rare now. I think people do realize they have to prepare, but I've run into people who say, I'm a people person. I am charismatic, and I pick up on things quickly. So I don't need to prepare, because every interview is different. So
They're going by
I'm
the...
great at winging it.
Oh, that's a big mistake.
Yes.
That's a big mistake and a red flag, actually. Because if you're not prepared for an interview, in my opinion, the slightest preparedness for an interview, okay? I'm not saying that you have to go crazy, but you definitely need to be prepared. You need to have some backup reasons and stories for why you, again, have the skill sets to do what they're looking for, right? You need to be able to share with them and not try to create it on the spot, because timing is important, right? The interviewer's time is limited. Your time in front of them is limited. So you only have a short window to wow them, all right? And you want to not spend that time trying to create your answer. You already want to have that ready, all right? And show that it just authentically rolls off your tongue, that you're not regimented or trying to force fit it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Have those star stories ready to go.
I think it's really important that you do have those, and also be able to support what you have on your resume. Now, not regurgitate what's on your resume, but be able to at least have some other examples that still showcase some of the examples you have.
Exactly.
Right? Very important these days. Well, Ed, I know that you and I can talk for a long time. There's other topics we haven't even touched upon today. So I do look forward to having you come back, maybe later in the year when your schedule allows, because I know it's going to get busy for you. And we're getting into the summer time eventually. But thank you so much for coming. Let the listeners that are watching us know how they can get in touch with you.
The easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, 3Ws.getstarted.com. There is a hyphen or a dash before the ed. And hopefully you'll remember that, because I say I help people get started, and all my contact information is there.
Wonderful. So, Ed, again, thank you so much for spending the day with us today. Thank you, everybody that tuned in and listened to Ed and I talk about lots of common mistakes that individuals can make when it comes to their employment search. And there'll be a lot more to come in future broadcasts. Thank you again. Talk to you soon.